The official autopsy report of Chuck Norris does not exist. That is the first mystery. But what doctors did find inside his body during a routine surgery has been kept quiet for years. A medical anomaly that military scientists reportedly studied in secret. One former nurse broke confidentiality to describe it. What she revealed challenges everything known about the human body and raises one disturbing question. Was Chuck Norris ever fully human? The answer lies in 4 words buried inside a classified document. The year was 2012. Chuck Norris walked into a hospital in Texas. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent, just a minor intestinal blockage. A routine procedure for a man in his early 70s. The kind of surgery that happens hundreds of times every day across America. Norris signed the forms, changed into a hospital gown, and was wheeled into the operating room like any other patient. But then something happened that no textbook could explain. The lead surgeon made the first incision. Standard. Controlled. Everything looked normal. But as the team worked deeper inside Norris' abdominal cavity, the atmosphere in the room changed. The surgeon stopped moving. He stared. Then he asked for more light. According to a scrub nurse who later spoke anonymously to a medical journal, what they found was not a tumor, not scar tissue, not any kind of blockage they had expected. It was a dense, fiber-like material, tough, unusual, and completely unrecognizable. The hospital ran 3 different tests. Each one came back with the same result, inconclusive. The material did not match any known human tissue sample on record. So doctors did what any careful medical team would do. They packaged the sample and sent it to a private lab in Maryland, a facility that specialized in rare and unexplained biological findings. 2 weeks passed. Then something strange happened. A government liaison arrived at the hospital without notice. No introduction, no explanation, just a quiet request to see the records. Within hours, all files related to Chuck Norris surgery were confiscated. The nurse who witnessed the procedure was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement. She refused. She believed the public deserved to know what had been found inside one of the most famous men on earth. But before she could speak publicly, her story vanished from the internet. Forums removed her posts. Articles disappeared. It was as if the surgery had never happened. What did she see that day? And why did the government move so fast to bury it? That nurse has not spoken since. But the questions she left behind have never gone away. And this is where the official record ends. The missing records from that Texas hospital told one story. But the decades before the surgery told another. A story that medical professionals have quietly discussed for years. Because Chuck Norris has never had a major illness. Think about that for a moment. No broken bones. No hospital stays for anything serious. No chronic conditions. Nothing. For a man who performed his own stunts. Who fought in martial arts tournaments for decades. Who trained special forces soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. This is not unusual. It is statistically impossible. The human body has limits. Bones break. Muscles tear. Joints wear down. Especially after 70 years of extreme physical punishment. But Norris seemed to operate outside those limits. And the few medical records that do exist point to a possible explanation. Between 1985 and 1995, Norris visited only one doctor regularly. A private physician in Los Angeles. A specialist in regenerative medicine. This doctor was not famous. He was not connected to any major hospital. But he had a reputation among athletes and Hollywood insiders. A reputation for achieving results that others could not. That doctor lost his license in 1998. The reason? Unapproved experimental treatments. Procedures that had never been cleared by the FDA. Treatments that pushed the boundaries of medical ethics. But before the investigation closed, something interesting happened. A patient file labeled with the initial C. Norris was removed from evidence. Not lost. Removed. A former clinic employee later told investigators that Norris had received injections derived from animal stem cells. A treatment banned in the United States at the time. Illegal. Dangerous. and, according to some researchers, potentially transformative. If true, it would explain the unusual tissue found during Norris surgery, a fiber-like material that did not match human samples. But it would also raise a darker question. What else was inside Chuck Norris that never showed up on any scan? And why did no official autopsy ever take place? The absence of an autopsy is strange. But what is even stranger is the pattern of medical professionals who treated Chuck Norris and then disappeared. Not metaphorically, literally. At least 4 nurses and therapists who cared for Norris between 2005 and 2018 have either stopped working in medicine or left the country entirely. One ER nurse in Texas posted on a private medical forum back in 2016. She described something that still haunts her. She was assigned to take Norris' blood pressure. Routine. Simple. A task she had done thousands of times. But the machine errored 3 times in a row. No reading. Just error codes she had never seen before. So she switched to a manual cuff. The old way. The reliable way. She pumped it up. Listened carefully. And the numbers she got made no sense. Too low for someone who was awake and alert. Too high for someone who was resting. She asked her supervisor what to do. The supervisor looked at the numbers. Then looked at Norris. Then told her to forget what she had seen. The next day, that nurse was transferred to a different floor. 2 weeks later, she resigned. She never worked in a hospital again. Another case. A physical therapist in California claimed to have treated Norris for a torn shoulder muscle. A serious injury, the kind that takes months to heal. But Norris was back to full strength in just 4 days. The therapist reviewed his own notes. 0 inflammation. 0 scar tissue formation. 0 medical explanation. He wrote in a confidential report, not medically possible. That therapist no longer practices. His clinic closed. His records were lost. None of these stories were ever investigated by mainstream media. But medical ethics boards have quietly discussed them behind closed doors. And one of those nurses has finally agreed to speak on camera, for the first time, with evidence. That evidence, according to sources, includes a photograph, not of Norris himself, but of a document, a single page from a private medical file that was never supposed to leave the hospital. The nurse who took it says she did, so out of fear, because she knew no one would believe her otherwise. The page shows test results from Norris' 2012 surgery. 3 different panels, all marked with the same stamp, inconclusive, refer to external agency. Below that, a handwritten note from the lead surgeon. 4 words. The same 4 words mentioned at the beginning of this documentary. Words that have never been made public. Until now. Not consistent with human. The nurse says she kept the photograph hidden for 6 years. She showed it to 2 journalists. Both backed away from the story. One told her it was too dangerous. The other said no outlet would publish it without confirmation from a second source. But there is no second source, because everyone else signed the non-disclosure agreement. Everyone except her. In 2019, a Freedom of Information request was filed for any federal records mentioning Chuck Norris in a medical or scientific context. The government responded with a 1-page letter. It stated that no such records existed. Simple, clean, final. But 3 months before that letter was sent, something else happened. A researcher at the National Institutes of Health downloaded a 47-page document with Norris' name in the metadata. The file title, Musculoskeletal Anomaly Case Study, Subject CN. It was accessed 6 times, from a Pentagon IP address. Then the file was deleted. Not archived. Not moved. Deleted. A copy was reportedly saved to a private server before deletion. That copy has never been found. But a summary of the document was described in a 2021 whistleblower complaint. And what that complaint revealed changes everything. The whistleblower was a former defense contractor, someone who worked on classified medical research for over a decade. In 2021, they filed a complaint describing a document they had seen. A document that should not exist. According to that complaint, the subject CN file detailed something terrifying. tissue density levels exceeding human baseline by over 400%. Cellular regeneration markers consistent with no known age-related decay. The subject was alive, over 70 years old, and showed no signs of biological aging. None. The whistleblower claimed the document contained a warning label on the final page, a label never seen on any other medical file in United States history. It did not say classified. It did not say top secret. It said something else, something that has never been fully explained. But here is where the story takes an even stranger turn. Chuck Norris has two brothers. Both are normal. Both have had routine health issues, colds, flus, surgeries, the usual things that happen to human bodies over time. Neither brother has ever spoken publicly about Chuck's medical history, but a 2003 interview with a family friend revealed something unusual. The friend recalled that as a child, Chuck rarely got sick, not even a common cold. While other kids missed school for fevers and infections, Chuck never did. The friend laughed it off at the time. A funny memory. A tough kid. But years later, after hearing about the surgery findings, he reconsidered everything. In an unpublished memoir excerpt obtained by researchers, the friend wrote these exact words. There was something different about him. Not just strong, completely untouchable. Not just strong, completely untouchable. What did that mean? And why has no one in Norris' family ever addressed the rumors? The silence is not unusual for celebrities. But combined with the missing records and the deleted Pentagon file, it becomes something else. A wall of secrecy that no journalist has been able to break. Have you ever known someone who seemed almost invincible? Someone who never got sick, never slowed down, never seemed quite human? Think about that for a moment. And then ask yourself what might be hiding inside all of us, just beneath the surface, waiting to be found. Because what happened to Chuck Norris is not just about one man. It is about what the human body might be capable of, and why the government is so desperate to keep that secret buried. Norris' wife has also never discussed his health in any interview. In 2018, a reporter asked her directly if Chuck had ever been hospitalized for anything serious. She did not answer. She simply changed the subject. A small moment, easy to miss. But body language experts who reviewed the footage noticed something unusual. She looked down. She touched her necklace. And she smiled in a way that did not reach her eyes. That same year, a former personal assistant came forward with a different kind of revelation. He had worked for Norris for 3 years. And in all that time, he never once saw Chuck visit a regular doctor. Not for a checkup. Not for a cold. Not for anything. The only medical professional Norris ever saw was the same specialist. The one from Los Angeles. The one who lost his license for illegal treatments. The assistant recalled one specific incident. Norris woke up with pain in his lower back. Severe pain. The kind that would send most people to an emergency room. But Norris made a single phone call. 2 hours later, a private plane landed at a small airport near his ranch. A man in a dark suit got off. No medical bag. No uniform. Just a small metal case. He stayed for 45 minutes. Then he left. The next morning, Norris was fine. No pain. No stiffness. Nothing. The assistant asked what had happened. Norris just smiled and said nothing. That assistant no longer works for the family. He now lives outside the United States. He says he left because he started asking too many questions. Questions about the metal case. About the man in the dark suit. About why Chuck Norris never seemed to age. If all of this sounds impossible, consider one final detail. In 2016, during a minor lawsuit, Norris lawyers filed a legal document that almost no one noticed. It stated that any future medical examination of Chuck Norris' body must be sealed from public access. Reviewed only by court-appointed specialists. That is not standard language. Most celebrities do not pre-plan autopsy restrictions. But Norris did. The question is why? What is inside his body that cannot be seen by normal doctors? What did the Pentagon find so disturbing that they deleted an entire case file? And why have so many medical professionals who treated him either disappeared or fallen silent? The answers may never come while Norris is alive. But one former military scientist who worked on the subject CN file has agreed to speak. He claims the document contained a single sentence that changes everything. A sentence about what happens when human tissue refuses to age, and why the government classified the entire report not as medical research, but as a national security matter. That sentence will be revealed in the next chapter. If you want to be the first to know when that documentary is released, subscribe now. Because some secrets do not stay buried forever. And the truth about Chuck Norris is closer than anyone ever imagined. That former military scientist agreed to speak on one condition. His face would not be shown. His voice would be altered. And no questions would be asked about his current location. He said the document he worked on in 2019 changed his entire understanding of human biology. Not because of what it revealed about Chuck Norris, but because of what it revealed about everyone else. According to the scientist, the Subject CN file was not originally a medical document. It was a military assessment. The Pentagon had been tracking Norris for years, not because of his fame, not because of his politics, but because his body seemed to violate the basic laws of human aging. The tissue samples taken during that 2012 surgery had been sent to 3 different military labs. All 3 reached the same conclusion. The fiber-like material found inside Norris was not a product of any known medical treatment. It was not scar tissue. It was not a tumor. And it was not from any animal source. The material appeared to be organic, but it did not match human DNA. The scientist paused when he said this. He looked down at his hands. Then he continued. He said the 4 words written by that Texas surgeon were not an exaggeration. They were a medical fact. Not consistent with human was the most accurate description possible. Because whatever was inside Chuck Norris did not belong there. And yet, it had been there for decades, possibly since birth. The document then described something even more disturbing. Tests showed that the material was not just present in Norris' abdominal cavity. It was woven throughout his entire body, between muscle fibers, around organs, along the spine, a natural lattice of unknown biological tissue that seemed to be reinforcing his body from the inside out, like nature's version of Kevlar. The scientist said the final page of the document contained a warning, not a security warning, a biological warning. It stated that any attempt to replicate this tissue in other human subjects had failed. Every single time, the subjects died within weeks. Their bodies rejected the material violently. The only person who could survive it was Chuck Norris, and no one knew why. The document ended with a question, one that has never been answered. Was Chuck Norris born this way? Or did someone make him this way? The scientist does not know, but he believes the answer is buried somewhere in Norris' childhood, in a small town called Ryan, Oklahoma, where a boy named Carlos Ray Norris grew up like any other child. Or so the story goes.